before, the San Diego Rescue Mission held a symposium with area mayors to discuss working together to make addressing homelessness a top priority for our region. President and CEO of the San Diego Rescue Mission, Donnie D, joins us now to discuss how that symposium went. Good morning, Donnie. Great to see you.
Good morning. Good to be back with you guys.
Absolutely. I mean, this really is a regional problem. And one of the things that you've said that I love is that it's not just a drug issue or an addiction issue. I mean, there are issues of the heart, and it takes, really an all-encompassing approach to solve this, which involves different mayors. So tell us about the symposium and what was discussed.
Well, we realized as a nonprofit, faith-based organization that takes no government funding that we're going to have to work with politicians and elected officials if we're going to change the state of homelessness. My board said that they want to change the state of homelessness. They don't care how much it costs. They don't care how we get it done. And so I was empowered with that. And so we realized that we needed to start working with government officials. And last year we had our first symposium down at the Rescue Mission. We wanted to see what we do. We wanted to tour our facility. We felt like that was such a good start that we need to do this again and now get into some substance. Let's talk about how. So yesterday was about getting them together, and let's commit to thinking more regionally. Since the cities are from throughout the county, we had 14 of the 18 cities represented, 12 mayors, 1 council member, and 1 deputy mayor. And we talked about thinking more regionally, and I asked them to sign a declaration that we're going to share resources, a declaration that we're going to think about best practices, a declaration that we're going to think more regionally as it relates to outreach, as it relates to shelter, so that we can work together, because homelessness knows no zip code. And if you're homeless, where are you from? You may find yourself in Oceanside, but you grew up in Encinitas and went to school in San Diego. And so this is really a San Diego problem, and we all have to work together if we're going to change the state of homelessness.
And the fact of the matter is we don't have the shelter beds to meet the need that we have right now. So if we could solve it more regionally by helping one another with that capacity issue, that might be something that helps, right?
That's correct. We do need more shelter beds, but I think the elephant in the room is that there's people in shelter beds right now that have probably been there too long. So we need to find a better path forward, create flow from the guy living on the street to being in a shelter for a short period of time. That's what shelter is. It's an emergency shelter. We're opening up 2 new shelters this year, one in Oceanside that'll be open by the end of the week. That's a 50-bed shelter, all privately funded. And we're opening up a 162-bed facility in National City that we should have the certificate of occupancy by the end of the year. And so we need more shelter beds. There's no question about it. But we also need to, with all the shelter beds that we have, create a better system by which people move through so that they get out and working and living again and sober, and that people who need shelter beds have those available.
I know when you talk about your organization being faith-based, it's difficult to address the politics of it. And unfortunately, you can't really ignore the arguments that are going on right now politically. And that is, yes, we all want the same outcome, and that is to lower our homeless numbers and hopefully get to a point where there's none. But it's the way to go about doing that. It's the reason why the numbers have risen, and it's the money involved. So how do you address and bring together those mayors who I'm sure had different points of view on how to go about solving this crisis and what to allow and what to enforce as far as, seeing the homeless on our streets?
Yeah, yesterday was a start. I told them that I thought they had influence like an athlete, like a coach, and that by being there yesterday that they were allowing us to use their influence by signing a declaration that we were actually tapping into their influence, that they collectively were coming together and agreeing to think more regionally. I think that we talked through the silos that exist, and that homelessness is, people that are experiencing homelessness are falling through the cracks of all the services that are being provided because we're not connected, because we're not coordinated, because everybody's doing their own thing, going after their own funds, hiring their own staff. And we just said, look, we've got to begin to think regionally about this. And they agreed. And that was the first step. Second step was I asked them to volunteer to serve on a task force. And I had 6 or 7 mayors that said, I'll be on the task force. Let's talk about how to. Let's talk about how to agree on approach. Let's talk about how to agree on strategy. And so that's the next step. And over the next couple of months, we'll begin to meet half-day meetings just to put all of the elements on the table and talk about how do we work together to get people off the streets permanently.
Yeah. When it comes to this issue of forcing people into some sort of a rehab or addiction treatment, if that is their issue as to why they are living a life of homelessness. Where do you stand on that? How do you approach that?
Great question, and I think that's the elephant in the room right now. That's the thing that everybody's talking about. We as an organization believe that we need to put a stake in the ground that you cannot live on the streets. It's not good for you. It's not safe. It's not healthy. It's not clean. And there's plenty of stats and data to show that your life expectancy decreases, that it's not clean, that your health deteriorates, that you're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, that there are robberies and stabbings and all kinds of bad things that happen when you're living on the streets. And so we need to put a stake in the ground that you can't do that. I think Mayor Gloria is taking steps towards that. We do need shelter beds, and there's some other things he has to line up in order to really be effective at that. But I am pleased with what he's done in San Diego, and I think some of the other cities hopefully will have permission to do what he's done. I think it starts with compassion. I think it starts with trust. We've got to engage people living on the streets in a much more effective way. We don't want to start with the police. You need to start with organizations like ours and Father Joe's and Alpha Project, that we show up with our shower trailer, with case management, with food, with solutions, and build a relationship of trust so that the person living on the streets knows that we care about them and we don't want you going to jail, but there are ordinances, there are bans, and you cannot resist services in San Diego. If there's beds and there's a place for you to be, then we got to get you off the streets before the police show up.
Yeah. Donnie D., thank you so much for your leadership and for your time in this morning. I know this is such a huge issue that we'll continue to cover, and just appreciate being here to do that.
Thank you much.
Absolutely.